So veteran author Carolyn Taylor is joining us as our first guest on today's Big Blend Radio Authors Happy Hour show. And along with hearing about her world of writing, because she's got a lot of books under her mat there. She's done 5 novels.
Whoa.
This is the 5th one she's going to be talking about, her 5th crime thriller, Death-in-Delmarva. So she's going to be talking about that. And this book, along with Murder, I love this, what she's covering, because it's rarely showcased. She shines a spotlight on the crimes committed against undocumented workers. Hot topic right now, too.
Yeah.
You know, so I encourage you to go to her website, CarolineStories.com. It's Caroline, Caroline, Caroline Stories. I said Caroline. Uh-oh, I'm going to get in trouble. But welcome to the show. How are you?
Fine. Thanks for having me. I love that music.
Hey, well, cool. I'm so glad to hear that. So, Carolyn, because I start twisting people's names around, and I don't mean it, but it is happy hour.
It's Caroline.
Caroline. See, that's exactly okay. I will remember this. I will remember this.
When you have an E at the end of the name and there's an I, the I goes long.
See, and Nancy knows.
Caroline.
Nancy, yes. Now, okay, so listen, 5 crime thrillers, and I've seen, that you've also written, serious things like how to run nonprofits and do board meetings and all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
How did you go from that to I'm going to write crime?
Well, actually, the book I wrote is about how to plan and produce the nonprofit annual report. And I did this after years of working in nonprofits where I did do annual reports. And I realized that no one had ever written about that side of annual reports. The corporate annual report is totally different, and it has a totally different purpose. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to sort of explain the whole process from planning all the way through to distribution.
Wow.
Cool.
Wow. Because I think now, nonprofits, we're having more and more of them. They're so in need, as a lot of government programs go away, more nonprofits. And it's a scary thing, and it's a lot of work. Nonprofits, it's not an easy thing. And also having to deal with boards and then sponsors and grants. And, so I really appreciate what you've done there. What was it that led you to crime? Now go from nonprofit to crime. Well, you did it, not me.
Crime
I'm
writing.
just asking.
It's just like crime writing.
I love that.
Because it's fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I love that, you've got women in here. Listen, Daphne Dunn, okay, we've got to talk about her. She is in your latest novel, which everyone comes out tomorrow. So she's like this is like a spring fling here, Death-in-Delmarva. Daphne Dunn, listen, she's working in the Foggy Bottom grocery store, like that name. I want to write like you because this is fun.
Well, Foggy Bottom is a neighborhood in Washington, D.C., and she is working in her cousin's grocery store. It's called Olson's Market, and it's a terrible job. She's not happy with it, and she is bored, and so and then a woman gets killed in the neighborhood, and it's a woman that she knows, and she feels kind of guilty about how the woman died, and so she decides the woman was pregnant when she was killed, but the baby survived.
Oh.
So Daphne decides she has to try to find the father. And in the process of doing that, a friend also asks her if she could locate his sister, who turns out to look just like Daphne. So she's looking for 2 people.
Wow, I know, this is amazing. But then so the undocumented workers and the crimes that are committed against them, to me, is something really important to talk about. And we're in a very weird space in our country right now politically in regards to anyone coming over the border these days. And I kind of feel like we really need to, we're in Tucson. We have, we live on the border. We've lived on the border in a number of places. And I don't know. There's a relationship that happens between the 2 countries just on this side. I know we lived in Florida, now we had Cuba, and we have, there's different borders, right? But this is like one of those things where, I have friends who've been advocating for rights for women that are in the world of, sex, and like, hey, we need to make this legalized so that there's medical checkups and things like that if they're going to be a sex worker. And the fact is, if they're not documented somewhere, they can disappear. And it's kind of similar to what you're talking about in regards to these undocumented workers.
I wrote this before this current brouhaha about the wall.
Okay.
I started writing it thinking about basically the workers in Delmarva, a large number of whom are undocumented. They work in really horrible industries like chicken processing and also crab picking. And these are jobs that are probably not paid minimum wage, and they're exploited workers. But these are people who came not in the relative safety of a migrant caravan, but were probably trafficked across the border in semi-trucks and other conveyances, and really had a very dangerous trip to get here, to just to make a living.
It's sad. It's hard work. I mean, when you think about what they go through to even get into the country, and then now you're not getting the money. I mean, I know undocumented workers now. I know someone, you can't come to my doorstep because we're leaving tomorrow. But you know what I mean? There's they really do work for basically nothing, and no one's helping them. There's some nonprofits that help, but
I think depending on who is, what a person's household is like, and what their material gains are, and their money is like, and their experience in traveling. Like, you can travel the world on a yacht and be rich and never really see the countries because you're traveling in the rich phase. Or you can travel countries in the middle class phase and see a little bit more, or you can go walk the streets that you're told not to walk in different countries and really find out what a country is like. And then you might start to understand immigration and people who finally have had enough and they're scared for their lives, leaving and hoping to find a place where they can actually bring up their children and live. And it's political, but not to them. It is about saving their lives.
It's the story of this country. It's the story of America.
Exactly.
It has been that way since the beginning.
Exactly. So for this, I mean, what kind of research goes into this? And geographically, I know you're now in North Carolina, but you were in D.C. for a long time, so Delmarva wasn't that far from you, right? So tell us about give everybody the lay of the land.
Well, Delmarva is the entire peninsula of Delaware. It's the entire state of Delaware. And then it also includes Maryland's eastern shore. That is the part of Maryland that's on the other side of the Chesapeake Bay, and then a little narrow strip of Virginia that's also on the eastern part of the Chesapeake Bay. And the middle of Delaware is largely farming and chicken plants. And I spent many, many years going across that peninsula to a beach house in Bethany Beach. All the chicken farms, and you would see the conditions under which some of these people worked, and it was pretty horrifying because you knew that they were probably undocumented. I didn't ever play journalist and go actually investigate it, but it was pretty sure.
It's interesting when you talk about that. We've done radio interviews in regards to the dumping, not just poultry, but hogs out in Delaware area and the river keepers coming on our show, the dumping of waste into the water
That's
from
also
these farms.
a problem here, yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's all kind of connected up there. Yeah, we're always trying to get that visualization of a place until you get there. You know, when you hear about like Maryland or D.C. in that area, I'm just like, okay, I just see the White House. Got to move forward from that. But this book does take you all over the place with her, Daphne going out there. Where, tell us about her as a person, because she just decides to go and do this, even though she isn't a person that, has even the funds to do this.
She doesn't, but she suffers from, I would say, misplaced guilt that children often feel when a parent leaves the household, or which is the case with her mother. Mother travels a lot and disappears often when she was a child. And then also the housekeeper was caught, she thought, stealing, and because she saw the housekeeper, but the housekeeper wasn't caught, so she feels guilty about the fact this is the woman who was murdered, and she feels guilty about this and feels like she has to make restitution.
Wow. Well, everyone, this is, she's going out there. You got to work your things out, but this is a way to work out your emotions. It's like, hey, I'm going to go out there and solve a crime, basically, and find these people. Where did she come from for you?
Well, to be perfectly frank, she came from my first two novels, which were a series based in Annapolis, in which there was a wannabe private eye named P.J. Smith, who is also a woman. And this was going to be the third novel in that series, but the publisher of those two novels stopped publishing mysteries, so I had to find another publisher, and it just seemed better to make this a different kind of novel altogether, different characters.
And so do you think Death-in-Delmarva, will Daphne return, or is it going to be that's that? Because,
I think that's that, unless the publisher says do another one. I don't know. But I haven't been planning to do another one. I think I've had better success with novels that are just standalones, like the Loose Ends and the Typist, both of which are standalones.
Listen, your covers.
That's interesting.
I wanted to touch on your cover art because it kind of takes me back, a few decades, and I miss that kind of art on books. We've become so, I don't know, different now. Let's just put it that way. But there's a vibe with your covers that it is like, this is a mystery thriller, and you already know, and there's a feminine touch to it when you see them, and you're like, okay, but there's fire in it, there's character, and it's like, okay, what's going on? Your covers they all kind of gel together.
Well, thank you. I used to be a graphic designer.
Oh, cool.
See? Yeah.
So you did the covers.
Well, no, I didn't do the covers, but I had the idea.
Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I love the covers. I just like, okay, this is cool. Because like even, with Death-in-Delmarva, I feel like it's almost like Superwoman's coming in, There's like that. And then it's like, okay, wait, there's a motorbike involved. Like, okay, wait, like you're already questioning from the cover what's going on. And that's a good thing.
I wanted people to think, oh, I've got to find out what does this have to do with motorcycles?
Yeah. So you've got your other two. You got What Are Friends For and Jewelry from a Grave. Okay, that's your they were coupled together. Loose Ends and The Typist. So those were the first two, right?
The first two were What Are Friends
okay.
and Jewelry, and then the third one was Loose Ends, and the fourth one was The Typist.
Okay. And you've also done short stories. You have a book, Enough, 30 Stories of Fielding Life's Little Curveballs. So tell us about that.
Well, I have written a number of stories, a great many more than are in that book. And my husband said to me, why don't you try to put them in a book? So I thought, that's a good idea. So I decided to pull together the ones that sort of the underlying theme being, okay, now what do I do? And so most of these stories deal with somebody facing some kind of problem and how they solve it, or if they don't solve it, why they give in, or why they just run away from it, that sort of thing.
That's cool. And then you go into crime. So what do you do in regards to research when you're, writing crime fiction? Do you go to places where things have happened in the past? Do you do a lot on the internet? Do you read other, crime fiction novels or true stories, true crime stories?
I don't read true crime. I'm a horrible book addict. I read voraciously a lot of crime fiction. I don't do any research in the actual place, although having lived in Washington, the stories that are based in Washington, there's a lot of that based on my knowledge of the city and the surrounding area. Mm-hmm. But I do a lot of research on the internet because it's so convenient. And I'll be riding along and I'll think, well, is Georgetown really the place I want to have this house be in Death-in-Delmarva? And yes, that's the most logical place. That's the kind of thing that the internet is helpful with, and it certainly costs less than getting in a car and driving all over the place.
Oh, are you doing Google Maps and looking at people's houses?
Oh, I love that.
No, I'm inventing houses based on what I thought. The house in Loose Ends was actually the house that I lived in when I lived in Washington, and I had it burned down.
Look at her. She's like, that's it. I'm going to burn that down.
Okay, but
see, that's the cool thing about being a writer, man.
But Google Maps, when you do the street view, you can drive right up into somebody's driveway. They don't know, but there's a photo of it, and you're like, oh, I see where
Everyone,
you
do
live.
not give Nancy your address.
Yeah, because
she will
scope
you out.
Spy. No, it's fun. You just drive around in the little car that you're not driving, and then you pull up into driveways, you make U-turns, and there's no cops. You never get a ticket, and you do whatever you want.
All right.
I don't actually go that far. I'll make a note of that.
It's fun.
I do have this question I've been dying to ask you. Beatrice, Cabeza de Vaca, mm-hmm. and she was, this is a big part, she was the one killed. Mm-hmm. Cabeza de Vaca is like a Spanish explorer. I mean, there's a story we've actually been covering on him, and how everybody came in to Texas and died in the desert. He died in the desert. Well, he got part way, but all these people came in on his boat and died in Texas.
Was this a land so strange?
This is a real. You got to look him up. He's
missionary.
He's Cabeza de Vaca.
No, the book. The title of the book.
This isn't a book. This is a true thing that happened. Only 4 people survived. It was in 1527. He's a Spanish explorer of the New World, and so I just didn't know if you read about that story or got inspired.
I read about Cabeza de Vaca in a book called A Land So Strange. Then I also I was in the Foreign Service briefly when I was much younger, and I served a tour of duty in Quito, Ecuador, and one of the people who worked in the embassy was named Cabeza de Vaca, and I thought, that is such a wonderful name. I have to use it.
Wow, we got into the story of I have a thing about explorers and people who go off and do things and prove that the world is round. But anyway, but we've been covering it for there's a artist here in Tucson, Ted de Grazia, who he's passed on now, but he painted a whole series of this, of when they got off the ship and all of them in the desert and trying to live on the cactus, and it's just an interesting series. So we're still in the works of covering that. It's going to be kind of a nonstop thing when we get to Texas. But so I was just like, oh my gosh, she's got that name in there. I'm dying to know, So that's interesting about how that comes from. So so now what's next? Because you've got all these books under your hat here.
Well, I'm writing a novel it's another crime fiction novel, the sub-theme of which is fracking, which is a hot issue in North Carolina.
Good.
Yeah. And so I'm working on that, and I'm also working on another one that is based on the fact that there, very near where I live, is an old Cold War communications facility that has been deactivated, but it's still fenced off with these ominous-looking no trespassing signs. And
creepy.
I thought, this would make a perfect place to put this novel. So I'm working on that as well.
It's like Area 51.
The Manhattan Project with all the Yeah, the Manhattan Project is
and
a creepy
alien
thing.
bodies that the government will never say they saw, but they got one.
Oh, we're going to get into conspiracy theories. I like that. I like that. So so now you've got two things you're working on. These are going to be novels, short stories, and how do you balance two different stories like that?
Well, I've learned that I don't plot them. I just start writing, and I reach a point where I thought, I don't know where this is going, so I set it aside, and I go to whatever else I'm working on, and then work on that for a while until I reach the same point, and then I go back and read what I've written in the other one, and I decide, is this working? Is it not working? Where do I want to go from here? That sort of thing. So they sort of just evolve. That's
I really understand that, because as a painter, I would start a painting and think, oh, I know exactly what I want to do, and then you get to a point like, okay, now I really don't know, and then something else pops in your head, and then I would start another one, and I would be working on maybe 3-4 paintings at once. When you get to that block moment, you just go, oh, fresh look, new environment, let's go back to that other painting, because now I know what to do.
Exactly.
It's weird.
It is weird. Yeah, but it's amazing how that works.
Yeah.
Whereas if you try to force yourself to, okay, I've got to keep going on this, it just doesn't work.
Oh, wow.
No, I get that. And I remember one art class I went to, the teacher said, stand on your head and you'll see a whole other painting. I'm like, it's really easier just to turn the painting upside down. Well, it's just a fresh look.
How do you take notes? I mean, so you were talking about, driving around thinking about this. Do you like record notes as you have these thoughts? Because that's the thing about writing. You stew with it for a long time, and then by the time you get to the place where you can write it down or something, it could leave. That's the hardest thing.
That is the hard thing, but I actually, so far, knock on wood, have been lucky that most of the time these inspirations hit at night when I'm in bed, so I get up and I turn the light on and I make a little note.
Oh, cool.
So that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you handwrite it or do you type it?
Yeah, no, it's because it's not a very complicated thought. It's just, this is where this has to go, or try this angle, or see if this works, that kind of thing.
So she can actually handwrite. That was my real question. You can still handwrite, because most people can't handwrite anymore, including myself.
Yeah, no, we all look like we're signing doctor prescriptions.
I know, because of everything being so digital these days. Where our handwriting skills have gone. And some authors I know. One author, Mike Grazia, he writes his entire book longhand. And I've read his books. They're massive. And it's all military, battles and things like that, longhand. And I'm like, how do you do that? I could have done that a few years ago, but maybe not now.
Not now.
I know. So, Caroline, are you ready to play Happy Hour?
Yes, I am.
Cool.
Ooh, because the Happy Hour bell is waiting for you. So we love this question. The happy hour question is cool. It is. If you could spend happy hour with anyone, who would it be? Where would you spend it? What are you going to drink, alcoholic or non? It's not about the booze, but it can be if you want it. But what are you going to talk about? It's about gossips.
Yeah.
So,
Caroline, who is hanging out with you for happy hour? Anyone alive or passed on?
My husband, John. And I would go to the Old Anglers Inn in Potomac, Maryland. It's on MacArthur Boulevard, and it's just this beautiful old building, and especially in the wintertime, because they have a huge, real fireplace in the bar room, so you can have your drink and sit by the fire.
Cool.
And I would always order Ballantine Scotch on the rocks.
Cool.
And
nice.
we would talk about the current political situation, which was really be more of a gnashing of teeth than anything else at the moment.
You'd need another drink.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Several.
You may need more than one.
It's like several.
I know. Well, we appreciate your writing and appreciate you being on this show with us today. And congratulations and a toast to you for your new book coming out tomorrow, March 21st, 2019, everyone. Death-in-Delmarva. Again, by Caroline Taylor, and you can go to carolinestories.com, go to Amazon, all those places to get it, and you can buy it now. You can pre-order it right now. Do it, right?
Do it now.
Isn't that right, Caroline? They can do it now.
Yes.
They can go do
Yes.
it. Do it now. Get her done and enjoy. And thank you so much again, and thanks to JKs Communications. Keep up with them at jkscommunications.com. We've been, partnered with them for over 10, 11 years now, and they do amazing work. And so if you're an author, check them out. And we've got a song for you because there's a lot of, there's a motorcycle involved and some travel. And this song is from our friends, the Cravens. They're based in West Palm Beach area of Florida. So we thought we'd play the song Highway because there is a motorcycle. And so we want to play this. And it's from their latest album, On the Line, and everyone can keep up with the band. CravenSongs.com is the place to go. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You take care.
Fun. Thank you.